Hello and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It is mid-December. I was going to say the beginning of December, but it's not. It's like mid-December. This month seems to be flying by, and I've really been enjoying getting ready for the holidays this year. I kind of got into the holiday spirit earlier than I usually do. In November, I was already planning on what I was going to bake and the types of gifts I wanted to make. And I've been reading some cheesy Christmas romance novels, all of the things. And so here we are mid-December, and now I'm like, oh my goodness, there's really not that much time left till Christmas. How are you doing? Are you feeling stressed, or are you just enjoying the season? We've got snow and it's cool here, so it's definitely feeling like the holidays already. This is the time of year that when I was a kid, my mom always used to say, the sun's coming back soon. The days are going to get longer. And here where we live, you really feel the short days. And by the time January rolls around, you can notice that the days are getting a little bit longer, a little bit more sunlight every day. So I'm looking forward to the solstice because that means the sun's coming back. And I'm looking forward to seeing some family and friends, some get-togethers in the next few weeks. I have been knitting. How about you? Have you been crafting? Have you been busy? Are you baking up a storm? I've made a couple batches of the cranberry bars from a popular coffee shop. I have made butter tart squares, which are a personal favorite. I tried 2 different recipes. My original recipe that I believe I shared with you last year is still my favorite. So if you're interested in making some butter tart squares, you can check out my podcast from about a year ago. There will be a recipe there, and you can follow along with me as I make some butter tart squares. I have also made some chocolate chip cookies, which are a big hit in my family. I still have plans to make some chewy gingerbread cocoa chocolate chip something cookies. It's a recipe by Martha Stewart, and I'll put a link in the show notes below. And maybe something else, I'm not sure. I have had I don't know if craving's the right word, but I've sort of been like wanting to make something with like peppermint and chocolate. So I'm gonna have a look through some of my cookbooks and see if there's something that sort of, I don't know, appeals to me. How about you? Are you doing some Christmas baking? Let me know in the show notes what you're making. I'd love to know. I'm always looking for new recipes and new things to try. The last time I talked to you, before we get started, let me just tell you that I'm wearing my sunset sweatshirt. This is a pattern by Jessie Made Designs. It is a really comfy, cozy sweatshirt style sweater. It's got drop sleeves and really a lot of room. It's meant to be knit with a lot of positive ease, and I knit mine using some Spinster's Daughter, which is a yarn collaboration between Spin Cycle and the Farmer's Daughter. So Spin Cycle spins it up. It's a worsted weight yarn, a lot like their Dream State, and then Farmer's Daughter Fibers dyes it. So I got this beautiful deep burgundy color, and it's super cozy. It is a little more cropped than I'm used to wearing, but I have been wearing it more and becoming more comfortable with this style of sweater. So that's kind of great. It just, I guess, opens up a world of possibilities for me. I was certainly playing yarn chicken when I finished the sweater. I did not have any yarn to make it any longer than it currently is. But it's a cozy sweater and I really like it. Because it's cropped, I wear it with like some mid-rise jeans, but I think it would be quite nice with some like higher rise trouser pants. So I think I'll be trying that out over the holiday season. Let me show you some of the things I've been knitting on in the last couple of weeks. When last we spoke, I was going to a couple of craft fairs, and I had good intentions of taking some footage of what I was seeing, but I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I was having such a good time with my friends that I did not stop to take any footage. But I'll let you know that I went to the Odd Birds Craft Fair, which is a new craft fair here in Edmonton, Alberta. It has, for many years, Edmonton had something called the Royal Bison Craft Fair that was very, very popular. And so Odd Birds is now sort of taken the place of the Royal Bison Craft Fair. Odd Birds was a delight. It was in a smallish venue, had 2 rooms, and the makers were really artists. Like, this was a very, they were a very, very skilled and talented group of people who were vending at this event. There was a lot of potters. There were some jewelry makers. There were Naked and Frayed, which is a local embroidery kit designer, was there. There were some like knitting craft bag kind of vendors. There was artists who were selling art prints. There were some woodworkers. It was really jewelers. It was a really great event. And I managed to not buy a single mug in spite of the fact that there was probably 5 or 6 potters there. I was really proud of myself. I did buy myself a beautiful pair of beaded, they're definitely not beaded earrings. And I got a couple of prints for my house. So that was fun. And then the other craft fair I went to was an Edmonton craft market, Christmas craft market, I guess, at Fort Edmonton Park. Fort Edmonton is a sort of historical venue here in Edmonton that sort of is a living museum and allows people to see how people lived in various stages of Edmonton's development, starting in the fur trade. And that there's a fort there, a wooden fort that you can go to, which is really beautiful, especially at Christmas time. They decorate it. It's really lovely. Through pioneering and farming, and as Edmonton became more established as a city and as a community. So it's an interesting place to go and just walk around. And they had vendors sort of mostly in the, if you know Fort Edmonton at all, there's a big midway with lots of rides that are sort of characteristic of the 1920s. And so there were some vendors over there. There was mostly food. There was a lot of people, like a lot of distilleries and beer vendors. So there was quite a lot of sampling going on and a lot of food vendors. And then there was a bigger sort of selection of vendors in the airplane hangar, which is was a big part of Edmonton's history. We were, Edmonton is a base for the north. And so there was a lot of airplane travel from Edmonton to northern Canada. And Edmonton was sort of the base. So airplane travel was definitely a big part of our history. And then in the old Selkirk Hotel, there was a few vendors too. So that, again, it was mostly like food, or I found there was mostly food, baking, different foods and stuff. So I got a bottle of a non-alcoholic like mulled berry drink that I'm looking forward to having at Christmas time, and some other things. There's just food things that we've been eating along the way. So the craft fairs were delightful and very different in nature. So that was great. And it's also interesting to see what people are making with different crafters. So that was really cool. Speaking of crafting, why don't I get to the things that I have been crafting? The last time I saw you, it was American Thanksgiving weekend, and I was in the thick of a knit along with Andrea Mowry. She had just come out with a pattern called the Oxbow socks, and every year she does a challenge over the Thanksgiving weekend in the United States to knit a pair of socks in a weekend. I managed to do it. I was quite grateful that these were some shorty socks, so that really helped. And this is a patterned pair of socks. I knit mine in this deep berry color, and the yarn is John Arbin Exmar socks. And I think that you can see one of the issues that I was having with this sock pattern and this yarn combination. I think the pattern it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy knitting it, and I think part of it was the yarn I chose. The yarn that I used, it does not have a lot of stitch definition because it's sort of a more rusticy kind of yarn. And so I was sometimes having a hard time seeing what I should be doing in terms of the stitches. I wonder if I turn my light down a little bit, if that would help. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot. So this pattern is one that Andrea used in her, I think, Gib Gib pullover. There's an Oxbow cardigan, I think. It's a knit purl pattern, and on these socks, she took that pattern and she turned it inside out. So I think that the pattern that you see on the sweaters is actually the inside of the socks. Let me show you the inside of the sock, and maybe that looks a bit more familiar to you. So, like I said, I don't know that I really enjoyed knitting these socks, and I'm not sure if it was the pattern or if it was the combination of the pattern and the yarn. I would get a little bit frustrated at the beginning of each round because it was hard for me to tell which round I was on. And I'm pretty good at reading my knitting. Having said all that, it was still fun to take part in the knit along. I got this really lovely pair of shorty socks. They're cozy and will be warm for the winter. But I don't know that I will be knitting that pattern again. I had very, very little of this burgundy left over. I think I kind of forgot that when you knit a textured pattern, knits and purls, it does take up more yarn because more yarn is used as you move in between the knits and the purls. So I used nearly all of a 50 gram skein of Exmore sock for the burgundy. And then I had, I probably had 20 grams of this gray color. So I had lots of that left. And this is also some Exmore sock. So those are the Oxbow socks, patterned by Andrea Mowry. And it wasn't my favorite to knit, but it might be yours. I'd give it a try. Just because it wasn't for me. And I do think that part of it was the combination of the yarn and the pattern. I think if I had used a yarn that gave more stitch definition, I think that I might have had a more enjoyable time knitting. Anyway, having said all that, I also finished a hat. And this hat was a nice change from all the socks that I had been knitting. The hat that I made is a gift. It is for a friend, and I knit the Hipster hat. This is a pattern by Petite Knits, and I think a popular pattern. I have seen other podcasters making this hat because it's just such a lovely, easy pattern to follow. Petite knit patterns I find are very, very straightforward and easy to follow. I use this really interesting yarn by Hedgehog Fibers. It's called Tweedy, and it's a DK. Now I haven't blocked this hat yet. I probably should, but I really like how bouncy and gushy it is without me having blocked it. All of the color pops are just so much fun, and I really liked it. It's a soft yarn, really, really lovely. And I think that when you roll it up with a nice big cuff, I think it'll be a great hat. In fact, probably I should try it on. Oh dear. How's that? I love how snug it is, and I think it'd be very cozy, especially because with a folded brim like this, it's nice double weight, double thickness around your ears. So very cozy. I think I would absolutely knit this hat again. Possibly for myself, possibly for somebody else. The one thing that I would mention to you about this hat pattern is that it does include 4 sizes, but there's only 2 different numbers for the number of stitches that you cast on. So for the 2 smaller sizes, it's the same number that you cast on, and I think you just knit a shorter hat, body of the hat. And then for the 2 larger sizes, same thing. It's the same number of stitches cast on, but you knit a slightly longer body. Now this hat it's a 2x2 rib, so it has got a ton of stretch, and I do have sort of I would say I have a average sized lady's head. I don't know, but I do have room in this hat. I could easily, there's room for this to fit a bigger head. So I think that given all of that, I still think that I would knit this again. I'm thinking about knitting one for my husband. He does have a January birthday, so I might be knitting this for him. And I have some yarn in my stash that I've had for ages and ages, and it has some cashmere in it, so I think that might be really nice. So that might be something that I cast on in the new year. But anyway, the Hipster hat by Petite Knit, I used 66 grams, so 2/3 of a ball of DK weight. If you have some leftovers, you could absolutely make this. Also, if you had leftovers of DK yarns, I think you could color block it. So you could just have like, you could have one color and one color and one color, and that might be fun too. But this is a Christmas gift, so that will be going on the pile. And the other thing that I finished just this week was my December Colorwork Cuff Club socks. Now, Summer Lee, the amazing and talented Summer Lee, who has published my favorite book of the year, The Sock Project, is currently working on a second book. Super excited about that. But the Colorwork Cuff Club is a monthly subscription. You pay once for the whole year, and then every month you get a new cuff chart to work some color work, and then the rest of the sock is just plain sailing. So this is my December pair. I very much copied her colors because I love her. The pattern came out with 2 charts optionally, and each chart has its own option. So there were these houses, and then there were trees. And a friend of mine texted me the morning of December 1st before I'd looked at my email, and she just texted, houses or trees? And I was very confused until I realized what she was talking about. And I said both. Why not? Let's do them both. Now, each chart comes with the option to do with snow or without snow. So if you live someplace where you don't have snow at Christmas time, then you just don't knit snow. Or if you'd rather not have snow, you just don't do it. The snow does add a little bit of difficulty to the socks, the charts, and there are definitely rows in the tree pattern, which I did second, thank goodness. I thought it was easier. In the tree pattern, there are rows where you're working 3 colors at a time. In the houses pattern, there are multiple rows where you're working with 4 yarns at a time. And that does make it a bit more complicated. At least it did for me. I find that these socks, this one, the one with the houses, is definitely feels a bit thicker around the cuff than the tree one, just because there are more strands going on. But I think as a pair, I think they're absolutely adorable. I think that I will be wearing these throughout the Christmas season. I think they're so cute. And the yarns I used were leftovers from my Le Granny triangle shawl that I made. So this blue, I had maybe a meter left. A meter is about a yard. I had about that much left of the blue. Very, very little left. And this is some Polka Dot Creek. The green, or this tealy color, is also some Polka Dot Creek. This neon yellow, I think, is some Leo and Roxy, just scraps that I had lying around. You use very little of it. This beige is, it is some Mondim, Retrosaria Mondim sock yarn in that beige color. And I had used this recently in a pair of socks as well. What socks were those? I know I just used them. Maybe in my November socks? What did my November socks look like? I can't even remember. Okay. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I used those recently. And then the red that I used here and down here is some Knit Picks Stroll in the Bowie colorway. The creamy white is West Yorkshire Spinners in the Milk Bottle colorway. And this pinky color is some Wool silk. So it is some woolen silk yarn. You use so very little of the stripy colors. Oh, the black. The black is also some Knit Picks, but it's Stroll Glimmer, so it's got a little bit of a shimmer to it. Maybe you can see. You use so little of those colors. Like the neon yellow, very little. The black, very little. So I would say if you had 20 grams, you were probably good. The blue, I used a bit more than I was expecting, but I did have enough, thank goodness. I was making plans though for this one because I knit this one second. I'm like, well, if I don't have enough of the blue, I can knit these last 2 rounds in the green, and that will just look like the ground, I guess. But I did thankfully have enough. But it just shows you that you can use leftovers of your sock yarns for all sorts of things, and Colorwork is one of those things. So those are my December Colorwork socks. Now I have been working on a few things. One is a gift, one is an advent calendar, and one is my monthly sock club, but they're all socks. And I did have a moment as I was getting ready to record this podcast where I thought maybe I should change the name of my podcast to Joline Knits a Lot of Socks, or at least just for this episode, because I have been knitting a lot of socks. So let me show you what I've been working on, and then let me tell you what I am planning for when I finally finish all of these socks. So the first thing that I have been working on is my December socks. Last year in December, I had pulled a bunch of self-striping sock yarns from my stash, and I tucked them away in bags on the top of this bookcase right up here. And I had, every month I would pull out a bag and knit a pair of socks. It was sort of like a surprise sock club using yarns that I had in my stash. December's is a skein of Targhee Sport Weights. These are a heavier weight sock, and they are from Knit Spin Farm. I have been using a lot of Knit Spin Farm yarns. So this is some Targhee Sport from Knit Spin Farm, which I've been using a lot of, and the colorway is called Chicken Coop on a Frosty Morning. So I think these look very, very like old-timey vintage Christmas. And I cast these on because I was going to see Wicked. So good. I also have plans to see Wicked again at some point. And I just wanted some plain knitting. So I cast these on and I just knit a tube. Right now I've just gotten to the point where I have started the toe. This is my contrast color for toes and heels. And I just did a tube, and I'll do an afterthought heel because I just wanted to be able to knit on these straight while I was watching the movie and not have to worry about how far I'd gone. So right now I just have a tube. I will be cutting in a heel later, and I've just started the toe, and this is just the first sock. I haven't been working on these a ton because I've been trying to get some gifts done, but I will, I think, have those finished by the end of the month, and then I think I will be needing a break from socks. The last couple of years I have been doing a monthly sort of surprise. Last year it was sock tubes. So I had cranked a whole bunch of sock tubes, and every month I would pull one down and turn those sock tubes into a pair of socks. In retrospect, that was a really quick way of creating socks because turning a sock tube into a pair of socks is much faster than knitting a whole pair of socks. This year I have been pulling out a skein of self-striping yarn to hand knit, and that's been enjoyable. But I don't have plans for next year yet. I mean, I might change my mind. I have a couple of weeks left before January, but right now I think I just want to see what my heart wants to do, like not be tied to every month this is my project. I certainly have enjoyed it for the last couple of years, but I think maybe next year I'm looking to take a break from that. I've kept all the bags. I have been reusing the same bags. I've kept them. They will probably get pulled out again, maybe for 2026, who knows. But for right now, I'm kind of happy to not have any crafting plans for the new year. Or at least subscribed ones. I have been working on a pair of Advent socks. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you were here with me last time, you will have heard that I had ordered a Cozy Knitter skein of sock yarn to be shared with a friend. And sadly, that skein of yarn is still being held up by Canada Post, who is still striking. Although I did see a headline today that it could be that the strike is being ended by the government. I think that the Minister for Labor, is stepping in. We'll see. Anyway, at this point, I think it's too late to start another pair of Advent socks. So I will have a skein of Advent yarn to knit up 24 stripes of socks with a contrast mini. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I might just hold on to it and wind it up into 2 little cakes with 24 stripes each, and then set it aside and maybe make myself some Christmas in July socks. Because by the time July rolls around, I think I will have maybe gotten over, not my disappointment. I guess I am a little disappointed that I didn't have this yarn to start with in December. It's no one's fault. It's just an unfortunate turn of events that the day that my yarn was meant to be delivered to me, the workers went on strike. It's just bad luck. So I think I will just set that aside and maybe make myself do a 24-day Advent in July or in June, who knows. But I think I'll just, when it comes, I will put it aside and I'll think about that later. Now I have been working on my Woolens and Nosh Advent calendar, so I'm really, really glad that I did order myself 2 Advent skeins. At first I was like, well, this is too much, but I'm really glad I did it because otherwise I wouldn't have had a fun Advent yarn to work on. Now, the Woolens and Nosh Advent, let me just explain this to you a little bit. This is my first time knitting this, and it comes in this cute little bag. And I had a skein, a mini skein of a solid color for the toes and the heels. And then every day you knit a stripe of yarn, a colorful stripe. And then when you get to the end of that day's yarn, the yarn turns black. So you get a black stripe, which is the same as the toe. So you know that you're done for that day. And then you don't know what your color for the next day is because it's hidden in this cute little canvas bag. Now, I have been knitting a stripe a day, and I did get to the point where I needed to put in a heel. And I mean, I didn't think my feet were very small, but now I'm going to have a long leg on these socks because this is just 12 stripes on them for right now. So it's going to be another, this much again on the leg, which is fine. I live in a cold place where long socks are always appreciated. I have been enjoying the colors that they've been using. I really am liking this bluey green section that's happening right now. These colors here, I'm not a huge fan of these greens and yellows, but you know what? It's fine. The sock as a whole is just so much fun. And every day I've been knitting a stripe, and I keep them like this, sort of attached to the bag. So every day I can knit my next stripe and not know what's happening. Now, remember when I was talking about this Cozy Knitter Advent? I'm thinking what I'm going to do is wind up 2 little cakes and have the ends poking out the end and then put it in this bag so that I can use the bag and by the time I go to knit this yarn, I will have completely forgotten what it all looked like. And I'll still have that sort of sense of surprise as I'm knitting it. So that is my plan for the Cozy Knitter Advent, if it ever shows up. It will. I'm being a bit dramatic. And like I said, it is what it is. It's nobody's fault. It's just, I've been trying to avoid seeing pictures of this year's Advent because I feel a little sad that the way things happened, it didn't work out for me. But like I said, I did have this Woolens and Nosh Advent calendar that I have been enjoying. And the fun thing about the Woolens and Nosh one is that I believe each little cake in this bag, so the little cakes that are, right here, they have more than 24 stripes in them. So they were wound by weight and not by the number of stripes. So there will be a little bit of yarn left over at the end. I'm not sure what I'm going to make. I might make some little cup cozies. Depends how much yarn is left. But the other fun thing is that not everybody started on the same stripe. So some people knitting the Woolens and Nosh calendar started here, some started here, some will have started way up here in the stripes that I have not even knit yet. So everybody's will look a little bit different, and that's kind of fun too. The amount of work gone into this skein just to get those little black stripes in between all of the colorful ones, I can't imagine as a yarn dyer how much work that is. So I've just absolutely been really enjoying this this Advent, and I'm pretty sure that I purchased this in April and it was mailed out maybe in August. So you could, I think her thinking was you could use this as an Advent for any time, or like a countdown for any type of year, any time of year, any event, whatever you like. But I did order it fairly early. So I will be putting in my calendar for this year to be on the lookout for Woolens and Nosh's Advent for next year, because I have really, really enjoyed it. And I will be using the little bag again. As I said, I'll be doing the Advent. I'll be using it for my Advent that never was, so that I can still have that sort of sense of surprise and joy when I do knit it. So to me, this has been very much worth it. It was an expensive Advent calendar, but like I said, the amount of work and effort that have gone into it are impressive, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And I will be using that little bag again for, I think, an Advent calendar, but also just for a little sock project. I think it's just really cute. Now, the last thing I have been working on is my last Christmas gift for this year. It is a pair of socks for my youngest daughter. She really likes the work socks that I made her, I think last year. The ones I made last year were knit in some Leo and Roxy work sock yarn. So it's twisted black and white. And sometime in the last year, I picked up a skein of this yarn that I have never used before. It is Biche Bouche Le Sock yarn. And it is 80% wool, 20% nylon, made in the UK. So I thought I'd give this a try as a comparison to the other sort of marled sock yarn that I have used. This is described as a combination of recycled yarn that we wanted very colorful for a playful sock yarn. It is worsted spun and nylon, and the nylon adds what it needs to be a little bit more hard wearing. So I have used other sort of marled sock yarns before, and Le Sock yarn comes in a number of different colorways, not just, this is like navy and white, but there are some like gold and blue and purple and green or whatever. Maybe those aren't completely accurate, but they're not just like this type of marled yarn. But this one is very reminiscent of the work sock yarn that I have used before. Now, first thoughts on this yarn is that if you look at how it is twisted, it is very, very loosely spun, if you want to use that word. It's 2 strands of yarn, and each of those strands of yarn, I think, has got multiple plies in it. Let's see if we can zoom in. I think that like each of the strands has got multiple plies of yarn, and then they're very, very loosely wound around each other. This makes for, I think, a kind of thinner yarn. It feels thinner anyway as I'm knitting it. So I have knit the cuff in, again, West Yorkshire Spinners in the Milk Bottle colorway, and this bright pink from Stash, which I think is Polka Dot Creek. It's most likely Polka Dot Creek. And then I did the heel in that yarn as well. And then all of this, the body of the sock, to me, does feel thinner, like a thinner yarn. And I think that's because the 2 yarns are so like loosely kind of plied around each other. Now, it will be really interesting to see how these socks wear because of the fact that they are a little bit thinner. I'm knitting this on a 2.25 millimeter needle. I could probably go down, if I'm being honest, to a 2 millimeter needle. And the yarn ball suggests a 2.5 to 3.5 millimeter needle. Now that's all going to depend on how tight you knit and that sort of thing. But partly this pair of socks is a gift for my daughter. Now she's not very hard on her socks. She does not wear her hand knit socks every day for sure. So I think that these will wear her, she will use them for a long time. But I also kind of wanted to see how knitting it would be and how they would wear for her over time. So they're a gift, but they're also a little bit of an experiment trying out this sock yarn. And that is all of the socks and all of the things on my needles right now. Now, I have been knitting a lot of socks, it's true. And I'm at the point where I need a break. I need something different. And I am happy to be finishing off the socks that I have on my needles, but after that, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to knit some different things. On Black Friday, I went shopping. I will be completely honest with you. I was out and about. I got quite a few things done that day. But while I was out and about, I remembered that Spin Cycle was having a mystery bag sale. And when Spin Cycle sells their seconds or skeins that have maybe some defaults in them, they are quite deeply discounted. So as I was out and about, I had a moment of weakness. I decided to treat myself and I got myself a mystery bag of yarn from Spin Cycle. Now they're all seconds, so that means there is something not perfect with each of these skeins of yarn, but I'm okay with that. It's also a little bit rolling the dice because you can get whatever. You get 5 skeins, but those 5 skeins could be just about anything. But the people who work at Spin Cycle, I think, put a lot of effort into making a sort of curated bundle for you. So I received this bundle in the mail, not the mail, courier, because my mail is still on site. I'm sorry, this is kind of loud. This is what I got. It is 5 skeins of yarn and it is plumpy yarn. So I've never used their plump before. Plump is their like bulky weight yarn. It is 100% American wool, superwash, 100 yards bulky weight. So that's quite a bit of yarn actually. To get 5 skeins of the bulky weight is like, that's a lot of yarn. And this came out just as Andrea Mowry was publishing a couple of patterns at the end of the year. Now, I think I would have received this yarn happily. Obviously, it's a gamble and I didn't know what I was going to get. So I knew that I was probably going to get something that I had never used before. And I've never used their plump yarn or bulky yarn. And bulky yarn isn't something that I tend to reach for necessarily. But having 2 new patterns come out just as I was receiving this yarn was very, very fortunate. So I have 3 skeins of one color, and that is Afternoon Delight. That's this one here on the end. I would say it is, it's got like some navy, it's got some light greens, it's got some like lime green, a little hint of yellow, and some like berry colored burgundy almost. So I got 3 skeins of that, and then I got 2 skeins of Castaway, which is this one here. And it is grays, light blues, sort of a more bright sky blue, and orange, which actually are sort of very much the colors of the hockey team here in Edmonton, ironically. So I have 5 skeins of yarn, and I have a pattern. I have 2 patterns for a bulky weight hat, which is using 2-color brioche, and a bulky weight cowl. So I am going, when I'm completely done with all of these socks, I'm going to make myself a winter set that I can wear while I walk the dog or just go out and about. So I'm looking forward to that. I think a little bit of brioche will be fun, using some bulky weight yarn I've never used before in color changing yarn. It sounds like a really nice change. So I'm really looking forward to that once all of my sock knitting is complete. The other thing that I'm going to be working on once Christmas comes and I have a little bit of a lull, a break, a nice time to myself, I'm going to be working on Kiki's Kitchen. Now, Kiki's Kitchen is the 4th room in the Murder Mystery series by Diana Waters. You have probably seen me working on these before. The 5th room has just come out in November, and I plan on, well, it's on my Christmas list. So if I haven't been good and Santa doesn't bring it to me, which is a very real possibility, I'll probably be ordering that for myself in the new year. This is the kitchen, and I think it just looks like a lot of fun. I haven't been doing much cross-stitching lately, and I think that this will be a nice break. I'm so looking forward to this little bloody tea towel right here. There's some cookbooks and some bowls, and look at these little mugs. So I'm looking forward to casting this on. I think it just looks so sweet. And again, a nice break, a nice change of pace. So Kiki's Kitchen, once I have some time to myself and some bulky weight knits, I think will be a great sort of palette cleanser for me. How about you? Do you have plans for some things that you would like to work on for yourself? I know that through Christmas I have been working on some things for me, some things for other people, but I'm really looking forward to, I guess, having the space to just knit whatever I choose as it comes along. And I think maybe that's why I'm not planning on doing a monthly sort of club for next year, because while I have enjoyed it, I feel like I need to just knit what I want to knit. So I'm looking forward to having a little break in that way, and also exploring some different shapes and different techniques. So some brioche will be a really nice change, especially in a bulky weight. Oh, that's gonna be fun. I'm also looking forward to casting on a new sweater project in the new year. I have had in the back of my mind that I'd like to start a new sweater in the new year. The sweater that I have been thinking a lot about is the Sea Glass Cardigan. This is part of the Sea Glass world, universe, and it is a pattern that uses 1x1 color work to use up scraps of yarn and to create a beautiful color sweater. Now I have some solid yarn that I'd like to use as a background. It's a sort of creamy color in the De Rare Natura Ulysse, which is one of my favorite yarns. And I'll be using that as a background and then using a bunch of sort of worsted spun, woolen spun yarns that are kind of lofty and colorful as an alternate. So I'll be making a colorwork sweater with the cream sort of as a constant, and then the contrast color changing every row. Now, the way that this sweater is written is to avoid steeking, and I have thought about this a lot, and it seems to me that I'm just gonna knit it with a steek, because I think for me it's just going to be easier to knit it with a steek. I won't have yarn tails to weave in because they'll get all cut out with the steek. It's just going to be easier. So for me, and I know that a lot of people are intimidated by steeking. I know that a lot of people find it to be a technique that is not desirable, or it's not something they want to try, or it's too intimidating for them to knit. But the way I see it, knitting this sweater with a steek will just make the whole thing a lot easier. So I am going to attempt this in the new year, and you can follow along with me. I'll probably do some little videos describing the techniques that I use in terms of adding a few stitches and then knitting the whole piece from the top down with the steek, and then preparing the steek, cutting the steek, and folding and sewing down the steeks on the inside. I'll take you along for the whole ride, and I'll probably put together a little video, hopefully, when I'm all done, so that you can maybe, if you're feeling brave, try this too. So that is definitely something that I am thinking about doing in the new year. The other thing I'm thinking about is knitting myself a blingy sweater. I have been completely inspired by Dana of Yards of Happiness, which is a blog on the internet. She also is on Instagram as callmedwj. Oh, I just love watching her. She's such an amazing crafter. She's such a smart and well-spoken woman. She has these beautiful dogs, just adorable. And her knitting is inspiring. So she has knit herself a little sweater, a lento sweater, which is a sweater from Lina magazine. It's a very plain sweater, but she took that sweater and she added the blingiest bling yarn, and it is fabulous. She looks like the most amazing disco ball, and I want one too. So I have unabashedly copied her and ordered the blingiest yarn in the world. It's coming to me from Germany, I think, from a yarn dyer called Punk Rock Unicorn. And when it comes, I'll show you what I've ordered. So I have plans to make a very sort of, not subdued, but a sort of colorful, but I don't know, how would I describe the Sea Glass cardigan? Like kind of a workhorse cardigan, something I can wear every day over top of anything. And fabulous sweater with all of the sequins that you can imagine, and big colorful sequins. So we all contain universes. We are all many things. We are all, none of us are just one thing. And so I guess I am both a disco ball and a librarian, which is fine with me. I hope that in the next couple of weeks, you find time to look after yourself. Whether you are busy getting together with family and friends over a busy holiday season, and I know a lot of people are celebrating many different holidays in this season. Or maybe if you are spending time by yourself, I hope that you find time to take care of your heart. I know in the next couple of weeks, I plan on knitting a lot. I will see you soon. Take care.